I'm Joel, a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet, committed to my sponsor. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life, without exception. Um, I'm, a run-of-the-mill addict. I am, my addiction is with food. I was a drunk also, but my primary drug of choice was food. And I had the opportunity to start working my addiction, gosh, third grade. So I don't know how old that is, 7, 8 years old. So don't know how many drunkards started when they were 7 or 8 years old. But I started my addiction then, and my obsession and compulsion and lying and cheating and stealing around food, and my addiction starting at that age. So I had a lot of practice in being deceitful to the world and being deceitful to myself. I had a lot of practice in taking various kinds of what I guess is now called shaming. And back in my day, it was just called being made fun of. Not much different than all of you. We all have had the opportunity to lie and cheat our way through various kinds of interactions in which, oh gosh, I remember one time when I had snuck some food, and I thought I was very clever. I swallowed or did whatever I did. And the person that I was with said they could smell it on my breath. So, I think most of the time, all of this hiding and lying, people knew. And what was worse is I knew. And in order to protect myself from it, I was in pretty much a constant state of denial. And every time you do that, you kind of chip away at your own soul. And, starting to do that at the age of 7 or 8 and to practice doing it for a long, long time and you pick up mental habits. The obsession with food is not about hand to mouth. It's all up here. It's that, what am I going to do? How am I not going to do this thing? How am I going to figure out a way to get there? How am I going to get what I need? I'll give you an example. Every fat kid's dream, I grew up in a delicatessen, right? My parents owned a delicatessen, and I guess I was a fairly clever kid. And so at the age of 7 or 8, I would stand behind the register and I would, take cash and give change. And, people say, oh, isn't that cute? And they try to cheat. And, you don't have to be that smart, even at 7 or 8, to give change. Although I guess in today's world, you go to a cashier and the bill is $19 and a penny, and you give them a $20 bill and a penny, and they just don't know what to do about that. But back in the day, I could kind of figure that out. But that wasn't the real reason I stood behind the register. The real reason I stood behind the register is because right next to the register was the bakery case. And I learned that, gosh, if there were crumbs in the bakery case, I could kind of In between giving cash, I could reach in and kind of grab a bite. And of course, I do it in a sneaky way. Then I found out that I didn't have to wait for crumbs to appear. I could make the crumbs. I could make the chunks. I could make the broken cookies. And that kind of translated into realizing that, so down the street from our restaurant was a drugstore, like a Thrifty's drugstore, Save On It, kind of like an equivalent of CVS. But back in the day, they were a little bit larger, and they would have like pinball machines and those kind of things. And I've found that I could steal dimes out of the cash register, $2-3 worth of dimes, and I could take that and go to the drugstore. And at that time, the sweet little bars and stuff were, believe it or not, 3 for a dime. And so I could buy a whole bag full of those and sit and play pinball or whatever game, and just kind of space out to the moon. Yeah, from 7, 8, 9 years old. That was kind of how I was learning to navigate through the world. About 20 years later or so, a friend of my then wife said that maybe what I needed was not another diet, but maybe what I needed to do was think about what I was doing with food as one would think about being an alcoholic. And the name Overeaters Anonymous came up. And at the time I was living in Boston, and on a cold, and of course, my eating progressed and my obsession progressed and my insanity progressed. And we all know what I'm talking about. So one cold Thursday night, I made my way to a meeting in Brookline. Apologies. To a meeting in Brookline, Massachusetts. And I was so screwed up on food and sugar. It was really a haze. But all I remember of that day in 1979 was that somebody met me at the door and said, you don't want to be here. You want to go to a Saturday morning meeting in Cambridge. And I thought, okay, that sounds good. So that, of course, what that meant was, since this was Thursday night, I could binge on the way home, and I could binge all day Friday. And then Saturday morning, I went down into the basement of this church outside, just in Cambridge Yard, I'm going to say. That's not the right name for it. It was the park just beside Harvard. And I walked downstairs, and I don't know what the hell's going on, but there's don't eat no matter what, and all of these sayings and all of these things, and I have no idea what these people are talking about, except for 2 things. One, they talked about it with clarity and a clearness. And what they were talking about was what I was doing with food, except even I couldn't even admit to myself. Remember, this is like 20 some odd years of denial. So when I hear it, it sounds right. But, I remember someone saying, after I was in program for a while, I remember someone saying that they would stand in front of the refrigerator and they would drink salad dressing. I think I can say that as kind of a generic food. And they would they would stand in front of the refrigerator and drink salad dressing. And I thought, gee, many Christmas. And, you know, later that day, I remembered, yeah, sure, I did that.
5 minutes, Joel.
Thank you. I can't tell you how many times that happened where I was presented with myself, what I did. And at first thought, no, me, but it was me. So that day in 1979, I didn't quite get a sponsor, but I did get a gray sheet. And I followed that up with a men's meeting. There was a men's meeting at Mount Auburn Hospital. And I started going to that, got a sponsor, and lost a tremendous amount of weight. And for many years did the program as just kind of a weight loss program. And then finally realized that there was more to this than just not eating certain things. And that's really what's kind of been one of the foundations of this for me, is that after kind of years of doing this, it's not doing something. In a certain sense, it's not abstinence, which is the most important thing to me. It is the doing. And this program gives us the opportunity to not confirm our program by not doing something, not going into a bar, not spending money. It allows us to confirm our commitment to this program by doing something, by getting out my food and pressing the little button so that the scale lights up to 0, putting my bowl on there and pressing tear and making sure that it's 4.0, not 4.1, not 3.9. And God, it is so wonderful when you cut that piece of protein and it is spot on. And it is such a pain in the ass when it's like 3.9, 3.9, and it's 17 cuts. But at the end of the day, it's doing that on a daily basis, which has given me a life second to none. First of all, I just had my physical exam. I just had my physical exam, and I am not on any medications. I'm 73 years old and I am on no prescription meds. And my doctor goes, whoa. And my insurance company goes, whoa. And I go, well, yeah, what do you expect? I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet, and a day at a time, I get to live. Had I not found this program, it's not that I wouldn't be in this meeting today. I wouldn't be alive today. I'd be dead a long time ago. And so it's by weighing and measuring 3 meals a day off the gray sheet, committing it to my sponsor, getting to meetings, sharing with you, sharing experience, strength, and hope from you all, which has gotten me through some tough times and made me kind of moderate my hyperness during those good times, and has kept me abstinent. And just one last thing, yesterday was actually my anniversary. So with that, I will pass and say thanks. Thank you, everybody.